When we buy the dip with Fantom, right, what's the risk associated with this? So if we buy according to this hourly RSI, as mentioned before, when we buy according to this, and we simply hold this for a short period of time, so 24, 26 hours, something like this, how often does that actually work? Right? What's our success rate of buying the dip? Because sometimes it doesn't work. Here in this example, it worked well, right? The hourly RSI is low. We afterwards recovered, so all good. Let's adjust this chart a little bit. Now, when we look further out, here we also had a very nice here we didn't have the direct recovery, right? So we have this trading signal over here, but then we didn't directly recover. We actually went down a bit further afterwards. So how often does it work when we buy Fantom during such a depressed time when the RSI is very low? How often do we make profit? How often do we lose? Depending on what RSI level we use and depending on how long we hold after such a trade. And for that, we want to look at the success rate of buying according to that strategy. And here we've got our first chart. So this is the success rate, the 35 RSI threshold. We are looking at 35 all the way to 15 for the threshold. How often does a trade work when we buy, when this level here is very low and we hold for several hours? Now here on the x-axis, we've got the duration, right? How long are we holding after purchasing? So when we hold, for example, for 10 hours and we buy whenever the hourly RSI is at 35 or below, then we would on average be right 56%, 55% of the time. If we hold for 1 hour longer, then we would be right 58% of the time, right? So if you want to be right most of the time, or the most that's possible according to the 35 RSI, then you would want to hold for as long as here, which is a success rate of 62%. And the hours we are looking at here is 27. Okay, that's how long you would want to hold. So let's now look through the details. Let's look at different RSI thresholds. Let's see if we are more selective. We buy when the RSI fell even further. Are we actually increasing our rate of success? Are we on the safer side of waiting for lower RSIs before we buy? And how long would we have to hold in those cases? Okay, so this is now the 35 RSI. Now I'm going down with the RSI, meaning we are more selective with the purchase. We are waiting for more fear in the market. And so I'm just looking through this. Simply look again here at the y-axis for the success rate and see if that changes. So far, 62 seems to be pretty much the highest, right? And it always seems to be so far, now we are at 32, at around the 24-hour mark where we peak in terms of success. Now we are at 64. Okay, 64% likelihood of winning. Now we are already at 65% likelihood winning. So 2 out of 3 trades here make money if we buy at RSI 29 or below and we hold for roughly 1 day. Now we are looking at the interesting parts. 28 RSI, we are already at say 68% or so. Now we are again at 70 something. And look at this, right? 26 RSI, we are at 75% success rate. Right? So this is holding for 26 hours with an RSI threshold of 26. 3 out of 4 trades historically work the best. And it doesn't even matter that much for how long you hold. You can sell somewhere between, say, 14 hours from now all the way to 40 hours from now. You would always win in around 70% of the cases. But if you want to optimize, you hold for pretty much a bit over 1 day and you come up with a success rate of 75% historically speaking. Let's look at further reduction, at being further selective. So I'm just toggling further through the charts. RSI 23, RSI 22. And we can see now that these charts become more choppy, right? When we now look at the RSI 20, for example, we can see how this chart here jumps quite a bit in the success rate. And that's simply because there are not so many trades when you trade according to the 20 RSI, right? How often does the hourly RSI of Fantom really fall below 20? Not that often, right? And so you can't really measure your success rate that often. If you look at an RSI of like 30, you get way more buying signals, right? We are below this way more often. And so since we have less data, the chart becomes choppy. The results also become less reliable, obviously. And so I wouldn't take too much confidence in these numbers that we really get these kind of success rates when we are that selective and we look at the RSI of, say, 17, right? There's not a lot of trades going in here. I think for the RSI 15, we only had in the end, in the entire data set of Fantom's history, only like 4 or 5 trades. I think it's 5 trades. Yeah, this is jumping in 20% increments. So that's what kind of a risk you face when you buy the dip. If you do this very smartly, if you take the 26 hourly RSI and you hold for a bit over 1 day, then historically speaking, you would have gained in 75% of cases. No strategy works perfectly, right? So still in 1 out of 4 cases, you lose. But 75% of a success rate, I think, is already very, very good. A lot of trading strategies will not have this kind of success. That being said, this is still looking back into the past, right? This is retrospectively. This is, however, in the past, it was a relatively consistent gain, right? This is relatively consistently going up. The losing, it's not like we see a bit of a positive performance and then suddenly a crash and then a performance again, and it only works sometimes. This seems to have worked pretty much constantly over time. And so nobody knows if this continues to work again, right? Nobody knows if the chart will continue to go up. But I think it's the best way to use technical indicators. I think it does make a lot of sense to simulate buying and selling, to backtest this, and to find out what would have worked in the past, because it is a potential indication that it might work again in the future. And so that's what you have, right? Don't buy any dip. Buy only dips that hit at least the 26 hourly RSI, and then hold it for 1 day, and you should be good in most cases. That's at least what the data suggests. And so that's your strategy. What's your strategy for Fantom? Let's say it all again in a nutshell when trying to trade Fantom. If you don't want to hold on to this for the long term, but when you just want to trade it, when you want to take advantage of bearish times such as today, right? What is the best way to buy the dip? Let's look at all the data, all the buying and selling simulation data, all the most important things in a nutshell. Let's look at what really works. And so the best result that we can get in order to generate this kind of a return, the best result is to buy whenever the hourly RSI is at 26 or below, right? You want to buy during those kind of times. You want to continue buying. So say the hourly RSI stays below 26. You want to buy every single hour. By the way, when we look at this, how many positions in parallel would we have open when we do this? The maximum number of positions when we look at the buying and the selling was 10 parallel positions. Okay, so when you follow such a strategy, when you buy whenever this hourly RSI is at 26 or below, and you follow this, you want to have at least capital for 10 positions, okay, for buying 10 times. So don't buy more than 10% of your trading portfolio. So when we look at this and when we see the backtesting result, right, we see this kind of a portfolio development. And then when we sum this all up, what we come up with is an average return of 8% per trade. So you buy when the hourly RSI is below 26, you hold it for 26 hours. You don't look at the price in between. You just sell after 26 hours. You don't care what the price afterwards is, because the money that we make, right, the restoration of a balanced price after such an oversold condition, the balancing out of all of this happens after 26 hours, and then you can expect on average a return of 8%. At least that's what happened in the past, right? Expect or not expect, it's always a question, right? It's unlikely that price dynamics will be exactly the exact same as they have been in the past. So I would take some kind of security buffer here, and this is also not considering any kind of slippage or gas fees or things like this. So you might want to consider this as well. So for example, when you buy on SpookySwap, and you swap in and out on SpookySwap, you pay 0.2% fees to the SpookySwap exchange. So in the end, when you really generate this, you maybe only get 7.6% per trade. That being said, when we look at the capital development, this is not looking at any kind of DeFi returns that you can get from lending out your FTM or your stable coins, or it doesn't look at any kind of liquidity pool farming where you could earn trading fees. So this is all just flat money development, right? So maybe you can get all those trading fees back by simply deploying the money in DeFi. Okay, so you want to buy when the hourly RSI is below 26, you want to hold for 26 hours, you get 8% per trade, roughly. This kind of a trade works on average in 75% of cases, right? After 26 hours of holding, it works in 75% of cases. And maybe one last thing that we want to look at is what's actually our worst trade in the history. So if we did this in 25% of cases, it worked, but sometimes it didn't, right? So how much did we actually lose when it didn't work? And for that, we've got the following chart over here. When it didn't work, our worst trade was at around -12, -13% in that kind of region. So not too bad, right? When we win, we make 8%. When we lose 12.5%, right? 2 winning trades already counteract 1 losing trade. And since we win in 75% of the cases, in the end, we have a positive return. So that's what all of this is about. If you're interested in getting signals whenever this hourly RSI hits, feel free to check out the premium membership, where we've got a Telegram channel where these kind of signals get broadcasted. This is the link, right? thebitcoinstrategy.com. In the video description, you can find it. You can click on this. Thanks for watching. Hope all of this information is useful to you. If you've got any questions around this, because obviously this is not super easy to digest, there's a lot of math, a lot of graphs involved in this, feel free to ask this. By the way, if you want to get a tutorial on how to run such a backtest yourself in Microsoft Excel, that's also available in the premium membership. You can download the Excel file that has all the calculations presented in this video. You can watch a video where I built step by step exactly this kind of a backtest. And of course, you can get the signals whenever these things fire. There's a lot of other things. Feel free to simply check out the website. This was just a short clip. For the entire episode, click over here. It has got way more details. See you in that video.